1,500 kilometers from the Arctic Circle, China now considers itself to be a, quote, near
morning, Luca.
Arctic state. The Department of National Defense last year also noted, and I quote, Russia continues to modernize and build up its military in the Arctic, investing in new bases and infrastructure. It also possesses robust Arctic naval presence with submarines, surface combatants, and an icebreaker fleet much larger than those of other Arctic powers. The Pentagon also warned of potential Russian action in the Arctic, including jamming GPS satellites. Hostile powers want our resources, our shipping routes, and to be in striking distance of our continent. Let me be clear. The Canadian Arctic belongs to Canadians, and Canadians will take back control of their Arctic waters, Arctic skies, and Arctic land. After 9 years of liberal incompetence and disdain,
I feel like this is what people think Canada looks like. People like our American friends. I wonder if when they picture Canada, is this what they picture? Just like some dude in the Arctic giving a speech. Like this is our prime minister, future prime minister.
Military is weakened and our allies no longer respect us. Our safety, territory, and trade with the U.S. requires we take back control of our north. This gigantic area makes up 40% of our land mass and 75% of our coastline. 140,000 patriotic Canadians call it home across 72 communities. Since time immemorial, the Indigenous peoples have triumphed over harsh climate, harvested land and sea for food, and passed their precious traditions on to their children and down the ages. We grew up on the folklore of fur traders, explorers, and others who charted the Northwest Passage. Writers like Robert Service, artists like the Group of Seven, and Inuit sculptors shaped our polar identity. We are the true North, strong and free. As the world grows more dangerous, our brave men and women in the Canadian Armed Forces...
See, it sounds pretty badass when he says it, just saying.
Especially the mighty Canadian...
You want him for PM based solely on his outfit? It's just so funny because it's cold here. Like right now, okay, I'm put this in perspective. He is like 1,000 kilometers more north of where I currently am. And it was like -27, -30 yesterday. So imagine how cold this is. This is probably dangerously cold. You know what I mean? Like he's probably just fully geared up for this. Like you got to be geared up to be able to handle more than 10 minutes in this temperature. And this is like a 45-minute press conference.
Rangers must have the resources that they require. That's why the last common sense conservative government invested in the North, the Arctic Patrol Ships Project, on top of investing in the naval facility in Nanisivik, which is due to go online this year. But then the Liberals took office and failed our North and our forces. And Canada still doesn't have a permanent military base in the Arctic, while at the same time Russia has reopened Soviet bases and expanded its Navy's northern fleet over the last few decades. They've also developed new hypersonic missiles designed to evade NATO's defenses. What do you think they want those for? Russia even has ground force bases within the Arctic Circle, and they have more bases within the Arctic Circle than all NATO forces combined. This is a wake-up call. We need to become self-reliant and protect our interests and our sovereignty. That's why I'm announcing today part of my Canada First plan to take back control of the Canadian Arctic. One, we will double the size of the first patrol group of the Canadian Rangers from 2,000 to 4,000 Rangers. The Canadian Rangers provide self-sufficient mobile forces to support the military. They often report suspicious and unusual activities while providing local knowledge and expertise to the broader Canadian forces. Two, we will acquire 2 additional polar icebreakers for the Royal Canadian Navy. These icebreakers.
Yeah, which apparently these icebreakers are like $500 million each. They're like they're insanely expensive. Like, I didn't realize how expensive these things were, but they're essentially like submarines capable of going into extreme cold temperatures and deep in that temperature, as well as breaking through ice. Like, they're pretty crazy submarines.
Breakers will be on top of the current icebreakers that Seaspan and Davie shipyards are already building for the Coast Guard. The Liberals have promised these 2 heavy icebreakers, but not said when they will deliver them. I will deliver the Coast Guard icebreakers by 2029, and they will be on top of the 2 new Navy icebreakers that I just mentioned. So to sum up, under our common sense conservative plan, Canada will get,
and that's building new ones, right? Not just, I know some people are saying that they the ones that our government recently acquired were used or not in the best condition and were secondhand, I believe, from the U.S. or something.
2 new heavy icebreakers for the Coast
Correct me if I'm wrong on that one.
Guard, and 2 new heavy icebreakers for the Canadian Navy. 3. The Canada First plan of the Conservative government will build Canada's first permanent Arctic military base since the Cold War. It will be CFB Iqaluit, right here in this community. We will build it in consultation with military experts, local government leaders, and the Indigenous population. Iqaluit already has a functional
They're not submarines? I thought they were submarines.
A forward operating location and a functional airport and seaport that can accommodate the Canadian forces. Iqaluit already has between 7,000 and 9,000 people, so the base would not be isolated and would bring increased quality of life and economic development to this important city. The base will host the Royal Canadian Air Force Wing.
Oh, yeah, no, I'm wrong. Yeah, no, they're ships, sorry. I don't know why I thought they were submarines.
It will launch F-35s as fighter jets. It will also provide a place to launch and land Poseidon P-8s that will deter threats and carry out search and rescue, anti-submarine warfare, intelligence, surveillance, and reconnaissance work. The Royal Canadian Navy and Coast Guard could also continue to use Iqaluit's seaport as a base of operations to...
Sorry, the cost about estimated for a new one to be built, $70 million, roughly. Okay, so there you go. I was wrong on that. Sorry, guys.
Conduct maritime surveillance and icebreaking in Canada's Northwest Passage and beyond. It would also help NORAD detect, deter, and if necessary, destroy any incoming threats. It will fuel local economic development, transportation, and infrastructure. All of these improvements will be funded by dramatically cutting foreign...
Yeah, from what I understand, it's about protecting the Northwest Passage. Again, correct me if I'm wrong on that, but I believe that's why it's all about focusing on strategic key areas in our Arctic region for our national defense.
Aid, most of which, or a lot of which, goes to dictators, terrorists, and global bureaucracies. We've got enough problems at home. We've got our own backyard to protect. We can't be sending billions of dollars to other places. Often much of it is wasted and stolen and swallowed up by bureaucracies that act against our interest. I will be bringing our money home with massive cuts to these wasteful and corrupt foreign aid grants. So Canadians will decide, with Trudeau, Carney, Liberals, more and more billions of dollars will go to global and globalist.
Yeah, like, I'm still pretty confident he's going to be the next prime minister of Canada. Like, people can say what they want about the polls, but in all honesty, like, I think there's a main age demographic that does polls in response to polls. I feel like polls in general are always kind of hard to go off of. I think the only recent poll in the last 2 years I saw reflect the election very closely was the BC election poll that they pulled, I think, 24 hours before the voting took place. That was eerily accurate, but usually polls are not historically that accurate. I know a lot of people are freaking out lately because they think that the Liberals are going to win, but I don't know. Let's just we're still, I think, a couple months away at least from an election. And honestly, if the Liberals are a little higher in the polls, it might entice them to want to call an election sooner. I still don't think they have any chance of forming government. I think we're going to see, at the worst case, a conservative minority government. But even then, I think that's really, it's going to be hard to kind of take away a lot of this. Like, even people can say about what Carney has done with the carbon tax. However, the carbon tax that he's getting rid of is just the consumer side. He hasn't said anything. He actually wants to come down harder on corporations for pollution, which is honestly, and all in all, going to end up driving costs up more on certain goods. I think unless you can please explain to me how increasing the cost of production does not increase the cost of the goods. If you can somehow rationalize that for me, please do, because I think Saul tries to a lot, but I still am yet to understand the. It just seems like common sense to me. It's like if the cost of making the good goes up, the cost of the good is going to go up. Like the people who make the product, like if you're running a business, you don't want to eat that cost. You want to push that cost off onto your customer, because that's now part of your expenses, and all your expenses should be put into your product, right? To make that money back. Otherwise, how are you making any profit, right? So it's just, to me, it's like, I don't understand. I don't think it's really going to change anything. I think you're going to see maybe gas prices go down. That's about it. But anyways.
Organizations, while our people at home are starving and our military is unable to defend our territory. Or they can bring it home with common sense conservatives who will make sure our money serves our people, our sovereignty, and our interests. And we will also go ahead with the already planned defense update, NORAD modernization plans that include, among other things, advanced air-to-air missiles, air-to-air refueling aircraft, upgrades at the forward operating locations in Inuvik, Yellowknife, Goose Bay, and of course the new base here in Iqaluit. Other upgrades include early warning aircraft, northern operational support hubs, new submarines to replace the failing Victoria-class fleet, tactical helicopters, and a new satellite ground station in the Arctic. Common sense conservatives will deliver all of these things faster than the current Liberal plan by cutting red tape and delays. If we are to be a sovereign, self-reliant nation, we must take control of our north, secure all of our borders, and stand on our own 2 feet. We cannot count on the Americans to do it for us anymore. This is a reality. This is the wake-up call. And let me comment on President Trump's remarks yesterday. Let me be clear. Canada will never be...
Yeah, and we'll be talking about the tariffs that came into effect, I believe, today on steel and aluminum. So we'll talk about that shortly after as well.
The 51st state. We are a proud, sovereign, and independent country. We are a patriotic people, and we will defend our future and our independence. Second, he has threatened to bring in tariffs on our steel and aluminum. We will retaliate in kind with matching tariffs on American aluminum and steel, all of the proceeds of which will be given back to our steel and aluminum industry, and any surplus will be given in tax relief for our people. But these tariff threats are a wake-up call. The Carney-Trudeau Liberals have destroyed our economy over the last 9 years. Let's think about this for a second. The Carney-Trudeau Liberal policies that doubled housing costs, doubled food bank lineups, doubled our national debt, and sent $500 billion out of our country to the United States were wrong before. They are...
Oh, sorry. They won't go into effect till March 12th? Okay. I just saw the executive order was signed, or like Trump made the big announcement about it yesterday.
Absolutely dangerous now.
Yeah, I know this isn't the first time that this has happened either with steel and aluminum.
Combination of Trump tariffs and Carney-Trudeau tax hikes would be an existential disaster for the Canadian economy. Mark Carney has been in charge of our economy for the last 5 years when he became Justin Trudeau's advisor. And what has been the result? Doubling the debt, printing $700 billion of inflationary cash, destroying the purchasing power of our money, shutting down pipelines that would have made us less reliant on the Americans so that they get all our oil and all our gas, a radical environmental agenda that sought to deliberately defund Canada's energy sector. That has been Mark Carney's radical agenda that Justin Trudeau has been implementing dutifully over the last 5 years. This agenda was wrong before. It is an existential threat to every Canadian's job now. And that is why we need to go in exactly the opposite direction. We need to do away with Mr. Carney's carbon tax. This is another thing.
Mr. Carney's carbon tax. He does such a good, like, they do such a good job of, like, that. It doesn't sound new. You know, they've been branding Carney with this for a while, and I think they've been ready for this for a while. They've seen this one coming, and you got to give it to them. They're the ones who called this first. They called it. They said Carney was going to come in and try and lead the Liberal Party, like Andrew Scheer was saying in the House of Commons, like before summer break even, you know, and like, look what's happening now, right? So it's, it's just wild.
Carney told CTV about 10 days ago, he's going to bring in a new tax, a new carbon tax on Canadian industry. He mentioned steel. Can you imagine what it would do to our country if at the same time Donald Trump hits our steel industry with a tariff, Mark Carney brings in a massive new carbon tax? My friends, under Mark Carney, there will be no steel making in Canada, and we will lose the most fundamental strategic building block of an economy and, frankly, our national security. These radical policies have not worked in the last 9 years, and they will be a catastrophe if they are allowed to continue for a fourth term of the Carney-Trudeau Liberals. That's why we need a strong, Canada-first, common-sense Conservative government that will, yes, axe taxes, build homes, fix budgets, and stop crime, that will bring home production and paychecks by repealing anti-energy laws, that will build pipelines, unapologetically build pipelines, dig mines, LNG liquefaction plants, that will pass a bring-it-home tax cut to bring back the $500 billion that the Carney-Trudeau Liberals have given to the Americans. We will take back control of our borders with more border guards. We will cut foreign aid in order to rebuild our military, reclaim our north, put Canadians back in charge of their lives in the freest nation on earth. Canada first, Canada here, Canada now, Canada forever. Let's bring it home.
Thank you. We will now take questions from the floor.
All right.
Thank you.
Good morning, Mr.
Yeah, we're going to be talking about that as well, Luca. The briefings and stuff Mark Carney's been getting, and a little bit behind that, behind the scenes stuff apparently going on. We're also going to get into Jagmeet Singh going on CNN, calling out Trump, like, just, I don't know what he's doing, just making a mess of foreign relations. You know, I hope people can understand how Canadian politics work and they don't see him as a representative of Canada. Unfortunately, CNN put him on CNN as Canadian lawmaker. So, yeah. So he's representing Canada on the world stage, guys. It's great.
Mr. Poilievre, Artie Sarkisian from Nunatsiaq News. Can you please repeat the answer both in English and French, if that's okay? So, for the CFB Iqaluit military base, you said that that's one of your plans. Can you say how much you think it might
Zoom in on his
cost?
face.
How much you estimate you might be able to commit? When it might be built? And do you have confidence that, unlike the Nanisivik naval facility that was delayed multiple times over the years, this one won't be delayed due to harsh conditions and other things that delayed this one?
Thank you. That's a very good question. First of all, it will be part of our costed platform, and 100% of the cost of the base will come out of our foreign aid budget. In fact, today's announcement will actually reduce the deficit because I plan to cut foreign aid more than the full cost of the announcement that I've made today. This base will be up and running within 2 years of my becoming Prime Minister. Thank you.
En français.
Merci beaucoup. L'annonce d'aujourd'hui, l'annonce pour les contribuables.
Les services de Radio-Canada ont une période de navigation.
Improvements like great structure improvement, transport northern.
I guess they cut out there.
4
It's just the
total
feed there.
heavy icebreakers will allow for more transport of goods and services throughout the Northwest Passage. It will also necessarily add infrastructure improvements. Those could improve technological improvements like greater internet and cellular connectivity, more roads, and other things that will make life better for the civilian population. A strong military presence here will mean a stronger economy, richer people who are in powerful paychecks and pensions that buy affordable food and homes in safe neighborhoods. Thank you.
Thank you. Next question.
Hi, Sam from CBC North here. What proportion of the jobs from all the announcements today will be held by the people of Nunavut?
As many as possible. As you know, the Canadian Rangers are a northern force that recruits northern peoples. We want as many of the Rangers as possible to be Inuit and Indigenous, because those traditions that have been passed down through the ages are absolutely essential to doing the job. The Rangers are the eyes and ears. They do things that modern technology has not yet mastered. And so we want as much as possible for the Ranger positions to be filled by Inuit and by the Indigenous peoples. Furthermore, we see a lot of opportunities for recruitment in the North for the Canadian military that will give jobs and skills to the youth in the region. I also have no doubt that young people who are starting to get into the trades here in Iqaluit are going to be extremely busy. So my message to the youth of Iqaluit and of the North in general, study the trades, get into the trades, because there's going to be a lot of trades work necessary to build this base. Do you have anything to add to that, James?
Yeah, I'll just say that when we start looking at expanding base infrastructure here,
He looks like he's having a way harder time with the cold than Pierre was there.
as well as upgrades to the North Warning System, the upgrades in the NORAD modernization program, as well as the forward operating locations throughout the North. That's all going to take a pile of local skills and local manpower to build this infrastructure. I'd also say that as we move forward, and if we need more and more energy, we're going to be looking at things like small nuclear reactors, and those modular reactors will not just power bases, but will power communities. And so where we can co-locate, like we're going to do here at CFB Iqaluit, there's going to be shared infrastructure for both the community as well as the base that is going to actually improve the quality of life for everyone.
Thank you. This will be the final question. En français.
Brice Ivanovitch pour le journal Le Nunavois. En réponse au tarif douanier, le Premier ministre du Nunavut, Pidjaki Agok, nous a dit être soulagé par le sursis à Nunavut. Nous a...
Très bonne question pour les tarifs douaniers, violation du for the election before Radical Connie, your question on food inflation en anglais. Thank you very much.
Yeah, the last few conferences he's been having a sniffle, but I feel like he's also like cold. So I don't know if he's just like freezing his ass off or if he's like sick.
Your question on food inflation. The Carney-Trudeau Liberals have caused the worst food inflation in 40 years. Since Carney became Trudeau's top economic advisor in 2020, we've had the worst food inflation. In fact, food prices have gone up 37% faster under Carney-Trudeau than they did in the United States during the same time. You can't blame COVID or Ukraine for that. You have to blame the Carney carbon tax. Carney now says he'll quickly pause the tax for the election before bringing back an even bigger tax after the election, which would cause starvation in many communities. I will axe all the carbon taxes. We will remove barriers to interprovincial trade so our farmers can more affordably deliver food to our northern peoples. We will, if necessary, boost funding for Nutrition North so we can get foodstuffs here. And I will assure you that every penny that I collect in counter tariffs will be used to reduce other taxes so that Canadians can afford to eat, heat, and house themselves. Finally, hunting rifles. The Carney-Trudeau Liberals have said they want to ban hunting rifles. That would be a lethal decision in northern communities. It's hard for people in the south to understand this, but hunting is not a hobby in the north. It is actually a survival. There are many families for whom the majority of protein calories actually come from hunting and fishing. You ban hunting rifles, as the Trudeau-Carney Liberals have tried to do, you starve families. So I will reject the radical Trudeau-Carney policy of banning hunting rifles under common
The Trudeau-Carney, you see, he's branding them together so well.
sense conservatives, people in the north, people everywhere in Canada can know with certainty you will keep your hunting rifles. We will lock down the borders against gun smugglers and gangsters. We will go after the real criminals, not the Indigenous hunters, the farmers, and the patriotic Canadians that we love so much. Thank you very much. Let's bring it home for Canada.